Hi everyone, I'm here again with Ben Payne from Payne Advisory Group. Welcome Ben.
Thanks, Dan.
And we're talking about scaling developments and how to go to that next level. In this last episode, we're going to talk about some of the communication documents. So in the industry, information memorandums are commonly known as IMs. And that's what we're going to sort of cover off together with, I guess, investor expectations.
Correct.
And how to manage them. So Ben, what is an IM?
Essentially, it's just a document that you're putting out to your investors with as much detail as what you possibly can provide them for them to be able to make that decision to invest.
Right.
So we kind of touched on before with retail investors, they need product disclosure statements or PDSs. There is no formal requirement in terms of how these information memorandums actually present or how they look, or the detail of information that you actually need to provide within those documents. So particularly IMs you'll see then used in all of the non-regulated or the areas that don't require FSL. So those small scale investment offerings we spoke about before, the wholesale funds, and also you'll see a lot of joint ventures might actually structure some kind of a information document. It won't be called an IM in that regard, but they'll put together an information document for their other equity partners or joint venture partners.
Okay. And any kind of mistakes that you see in IMs?
A lot of mistakes, and
Other things that don't work for investors, I suppose?
yeah, well, I think where and what developers forget about is that when they're putting together their IM document, most of the time they're putting it together from their own perspective.
Right.
They're not understanding the other side and the audience they're actually trying to attract and what that investor is actually going to require.
Okay.
So they really need to put themselves in the other person's shoes and say, if I was an investor, what do I want to see within a particular document? And often that I've even seen, again, when we spoke before about people promoting investment opportunities illegally, and even in this wholesale space.
Yep.
I've even made inquiries myself with these people and asked them for their investment documents, and quite often you get back a document that's quite unprofessional, that lacks a lot of detail, and you just, as an investor, you just can't make a proper educated decision off it.
Right.
They just lack
More
transparency.
sales document rather than actual.
Sometimes it's not even that great.
Right.
I've had, in the past, I've had someone send me a document that was simply a one-page FISO with a couple of comparable sales in terms of to justify the end value of his product.
Yeah.
But that's it. No other justification behind any of the cost items or anything else that was in that particular FISO, no other supporting documents that anyone could make an educated decision to actually invest into the project.
Right. So we've talked about that side. So on the other spectrum, what does make a really good IM document?
So as we mentioned before, I think as long as you're in that mindset that that you're looking at that document from an investor's point of view, and I think as a developer, you really need to go into understanding what the investors want, and then going in with a win-win mindset in dealing with those investors. If you're out just looking for a wood duck, and basically you're going to lose majority of the wholesale market, and
You might get some speculators, but it won't be a long.
Yeah, or it might be someone new to Australia that's come over here, doesn't understand a lot of the mechanisms around development and development returns and those type of things. So I think you've just got to be fair in terms of the way you're presenting that document, what returns you're offering to those investors, the security that you're offering to those investors as well is really going to be really important, and the transparency. So if you've got that mindset, not only will you attract investors to that project, you'll attract those investors who will stay with you. And I've known developers that their investors have stayed with them for life.
Right. Okay.
And even sometimes developers have, off projects that don't perform as well. But, if they've invested with you and the majority of times you've had a highly successful outcome and a positive outcome for those investors, they'll be investors for life.
Yeah, great.
So if you want to be in the game for the long term, that's the mindset you need to go in.
Yeah. It's really a relationship.
Correct.
Basically, that you're building with these investors and taking them hopefully with the journey.
Yeah.
with you. Yeah.
And as we mentioned before, you try to attract now a wider audience than people that already know you. So often your investment document is the first chance that those investors have actually had an interaction with you.
To know who you are, yeah.
To know who you are, but also get to see how professional you are in approaching property development and how transparent you are in approaching property development with them.
Right. But is it a matter of just going to a professional creative agency and telling them, hey, I need an IM? Or is it something far more complicated than that?
Look, the fluffy stuff helps because people get attracted to the fluffy stuff. They like the look and the feel.
Yeah.
But ultimately, even some of the wholesale investors that might like that, they'll still go back to their advisors and say, their accountant or their lawyer, what do you think about this? So it still needs the detail within the document.
Yeah.
It needs to be a clear understanding about what the investment is. It needs to understand what is the investment vehicle they're actually entering into, what returns they're getting out of that investment. They need to be transparent on what they're getting out of the whole deal as a developer, even what capital that they are or may not be putting into the transaction. So that level of transparency is what is going to win over an investor. Outside of that, then it comes down to the detail in your IM. Right. How much detail have you provided them? Have you got supporting documents from the authorities? Have you got supporting documents from your consultants to support your development proposal? Have you already had the conversations with council? Have you got, letters of support from them even, or from the various different authorities? Have you already gone and, potentially costed up your scheme and got maybe some indicative quotes out of children costs and all this stuff?
Yeah.
So the amount of detail that you can put in there and, in your IM and like I see a lot of developers in IMs, they consolidate all their cost items down.
Right.
So then they lack the detail behind them, so that it almost looks like you're hiding everything.
Yeah.
But the better developers, even if they're to consolidated, summary feasibility, there will be a full detailed cash flow feasibility support that'll break it down by line item down to the nth detail.
Yeah.
So if I'm an investor, and particularly being an accountant, they're the things that I go straight to. And I look at the detailed analysis to understand whether or not this developer has actually considered all outcomes.
Yeah.
And they're not just creating a best case scenario, and they're not creating both in terms of costs, profit, sales revenues, but also timeframes.
Yeah, sure.
Timeframes can manipulate investment returns if you're looking at an investment return from an annualized basis.
Yeah.
So you can actually manipulate investment returns back to an investor if you crunch timeframes down in projects as well.
Yep. Yeah. And what about track record and those kind of things? How important is that to show?
Look, it is very important to build that trust with the actual investors.
Yep.
However, typically some of these developers, if you've only been in that small scale space, been doing some townhouses, and now you want to do a large scale townhouse project or apartment project, etc., you may not have the specific experience in that space.
Yeah.
So the important thing then is to surround yourself with a team of experts that do have that.
Yep.
So then when you're presenting your IM, you're presenting the experience, you're the combined experience. It's the combined experience of the team.
Sure.
Your town planner, your architects, your engineers, surveyors,
Consultants, project marketing, etc.
legal advisors, tax advisors. All of those things are really important for them to be able to analyse the team that's actually involved in delivering it. So even if they're not quite sure about you, if they see that you've got a really strong team behind you, they know that you've got a lot of support in terms of and a team that's got a lot of experience in dealing with those type of projects.
Sure. And is that what it's like to manage investor expectations, or is there something else?
And so we spoke before about returns. So, when you're a developer, you've got to put yourself in their position. And if you've got investors expecting 20% plus in a wholesale space, you've got to deliver projects that can actually deliver a 20% return plus back to those investors.
Yep.
Otherwise, if you're presenting something lower and they've got a whole lot of other opportunities that are presented to them, you know which opportunity they're going to go for. The investment that has got the better returns, and also the one that's the most risk managed as well. Okay. So, and what I mean by that, there's there's different timing of sometimes when developers might equity raise, and it might be when timing of when they've bought the site, or it might be the fact that they've bought a site that may already have gone a further way down the path in terms of plans and permits or development approvals and those type of things. So if they're already further down the development track, the project's getting more and more de-risked as the further we go down. So typically,
the returns come down.
Investors would be expecting a lower return the further.
Sure. It goes along
the further it goes on the way, and the further down the track they're actually coming into the equation.
Yeah, understand. Look, that's all that we sort of wanted to cover in this episode. Ben will put together a download that you can access at the link below. That'll essentially cover the entire set of episodes that we've talked about with scaling developments. We look forward to seeing you again. Thanks so much for watching.